What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about all things reconstruction. Specifically, we're going to be breaking down some of the biggest challenges that you're going to face as you perform your reconstruction projects. How do you handle scope creep? What do you do if there's not enough money in the budget? What do you want to do if the customer wants to handle upgrades? Guys, here's the deal. Reconstruction can be very profitable, but it's also very tricky. If you own a restoration company and you do reconstruction, you do not want to miss this video. Let's go. All right, guys, so do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button and drop a comment down below. Let me know where you are tuning in from. All right, guys, so I want to tell you first and foremost, this video was spawned after one of you viewers wrote a comment down and they were asking some questions about reconstruction. I was like, dude, that's pretty good. We need to dive into that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so in his comment, he said, okay, what do you do if somebody wants to upgrade something? What do you want to do if they want to make a scope modification? So those are really the two big questions that he asked, and we're going to address those. But that being said, I'm going to address those and kind of state for you guys how we handled our reconstruction projects from start to finish. Now, I'll tell you, I'm probably going to be a little bit controversial. I'm not telling you this is the way that you should do it. I'm just telling you what we did at our company, and it worked well for us, okay? So let's first talk about how did we position what we were going to do on a restoration project. Number one, we did not sign every single job to reconstruction. In the beginning, in the early days, we started as a reconstruction company, okay? And then we got into water mitigation. Well, once we started doing water mitigation, then we started to have to pick and choose what reconstruction projects we were going to do, okay? I would invite you to do the same thing. So one of the things that we would do is we would position our company and our contract as follows. And it was this: if we are going to do your job, we're going to do the entire scope, okay? The entire thing. And it's going to cost whatever we agree to with the adjuster for the amount at the bottom. What does that mean? That means we're not going to do any scope modifications. We're not going to remove and replace all the flooring in the first floor and then you choose to stop it at the powder room, okay? That's not what we're going to do. We're going to write for everything at full strength, just as if we're going to do it. And I would invite you guys to do that the same way. Here's the thing. When they start inviting scope modifications, things like that, then you're going to get into, well, how much is this worth and how much is that worth? For us, that wasn't something that we wanted to partake in. We tried it for a while. It got to be really sticky and really hairy, so we punted that. So the first thing that I want you to know is this. Whenever you're writing your reconstruction, I would tell you to position your contract like this. If we're going to do the job, we're going to do the entire thing for as we write it on our scope. That is number one. Now, there might be situations that you might need to change that. Here's how we handled that. So let's say, for instance, a client wanted to stop the flooring at the laundry room or whatever reason, and maybe it runs throughout the entire house. Okay, so maybe you've got a $20,000 sand and finish repack, whatever else. It's going to be a big job. That's because something got wet in the laundry room, and it's going to go all throughout the house. But in this case, the client just wants to stop it right there in the laundry room. Here's how we would handle that. So we would write the scope in its entirety at full strength, like the total top dollar amount, okay? And then I'm going to use the word negotiate. It's not really negotiation. It's just we're going to provide the estimate, we're going to present the estimate, and we're going to talk with the adjuster about that. Now, this is probably where I need to time out real quick. This is where it kind of gets controversial. This is where a lot of people say that I am acting like a public adjuster when I am doing this, and I am not. I'm going to tell you the reason why I say that I'm not. A public adjuster is working on behalf of the insured, okay, to settle the claim. Guys, I'm a general contractor, a licensed GC. And in this situation, I'm not trying to settle something on behalf of the insured. When I am telling you that this is my scope of work, if this is my scope of work, which it is, because that's what I wrote it, this is how much money I want to do that work. Does that make sense? And so my position is that I am arguing the value of that amount of work at that volume if I were to do it. That's all that I'm doing. Maybe there's like a hairline distinction there. I don't know. But I'm just telling you, that's the way that I always viewed it, and that's the way I view it here. You guys can get in trouble because you're not supposed to settle or close a claim on behalf of the insured. And again, the distinction that I make is I'm not doing that, okay? I'm just stating this is our estimate, and the customer has the right to do whatever they want to do after that thing is settled. And so I'm kind of getting off of my talking points because they're written right here, and I'm not kind of following them, but we're going to kind of keep going. Whenever we wrote a scope, all right, number one, I already told you we would write it for full strength. We were going to do everything, okay? Now, if the customer wanted to stop the flooring in the laundry room for whatever reason, we're going to write it in full, and we're going to come to an agreement with the adjuster on that. So let's just say hypothetically that job is a $20,000 job, 20 grand. We would charge our client a fee to produce and write the estimate and present it to the adjuster. Simple as that. Now, that's just what we did, okay? And this is kind of where the whole public adjuster, Shane, you're an evil guy. I've done a lot of bad things, a lot worse than this, I suppose. Like, this is just I'm a businessman. If I'm going to write and go through all of this work and go through all of this trouble to drive out to your house, write this thing out, sketch it out, and then go back and forth through the adjuster, bro, I'm going to get paid for that. And this is how much I want. So that's just what we did, okay? And usually I think our contract stated 20%, and that's kind of what it would be, or equivalent to, all right? So on a $20,000 scope, it would be $4,000. That's what we would charge them. All right. So what we would do is we would perform that service and put that thing to bed. Does that make sense? And then from there, if the client wanted to have a different scope of work where they wanted to stop the flooring right there, we would write them a new contract and a new estimate for that there. Okay. And that's what we did. And so the reason why we would also do that is, like, in most cases, guys, if we were going to write something for 20 grand, the adjuster was probably going to be at like 10 or 12. The adjuster was probably going to write that thing for 10 or 12, and the customer was typically better off by taking our deal than what they would normally get otherwise. All right. So that's what we would do. But here's what I would tell you. For us, I would tell you to write the full scope and come to an agreement on that and get your compensation for that, and then write a new scope, okay, for that work that you're actually going to do. A little caveat, I think what we wound up doing there, our contract, our work authorization for that thing, and if you guys want the contracts or whatever, you can go to restorationcontracts.com and buy the contracts. Like, we've got like $5,000 of contracts for under 50 bucks. But anyway, the actual reconstruction agreement that we would use is right there, okay, along with our work authorization. So what we would tell the client is that, like, hey, if we come to an agreement on this, this is our fee. And we have one other special clause in there that was pretty important as well. And it was, I think they called it like a no rescission or something, but it was essentially this. Once we came to an agreement and we closed that thing with the adjuster, okay, this is where our 20% would come in. That our compensation for doing all of that white collar work, if you will, we wanted 20% for that, and we put that in our contract. Now, I'm aware that some states may not allow that. Some of you dudes live in California, and for that, I am sorry, okay? In California, it says you can't take more than a 10% deposit on any given project, and that's just ridiculous, okay? So for us, we would always take a 50% deposit up front right then, and that's illegal in California. I would do it anyway, okay? I would speed if I'm driving in California. That's just the way that I like to handle it. Now, I'm always forthright with my client. If my client didn't want to do that, completely fine. I'm just not going to do your job. Does that make sense? But that's just kind of the way that I work. To go back to what we were saying about the contract piece, even if the customer, for whatever reason, chose not to move forward with the project after we wrote it and scoped it and came to an agreement, we wanted to get our 20%. And we put that in there because every now and then we would have situations where, and I tell you where this came into play for us is when we were doing roofing. You would go meet with the adjuster and they would get their $28,000 check, and then they would suddenly lose your number. Like, you can't get a hold of them all of a sudden. So we really started before we ever walked on their roof, and we would have them sign our reconstruction agreement right up front. And we did use a reconstruction agreement on roofing, okay? We did. We didn't use an emergency service work authorization. We used a reconstruction agreement, and it worked fine for us. So I would invite you to do that too. I had a lot of roofers buy those contracts too, by the way. But it basically said this: once we come to an agreement, we're going to do the job in its entirety for that amount of money, okay? Or we're going to close it out, and we want the compensation to be X amount of dollars, and 20% allowed us to move it around. And we were very forthright with our clients. We just told them, hey, that's what it was going to be. So there was no surprises. There was nothing malicious in what we were doing. And I would invite you to be very upfront and forthright with your clients the same way when you work with them, okay? But that's the reason why we started putting that in there, is because a couple of times there were situations where the client just suddenly, like, oh, wow, 30 grand hits a little different when it's in your hand. And then they don't want to pay you for the stuff that you've already done. So we would say, okay, that's great. So if we did 30 grand, I want 6 of that. And that's where it got, that was the genesis for us putting it in the contract, was in the roofing world. And then we carried it on into reconstruction. And to be honest with you, we never had a problem with it. We never, ever had a problem with it. Always make sure that you're upfront on your cash though, okay? Another big boo-boo that's not in the scope of this video, I want to tell you why I got you here. Big mistake. Do not ever start a recon job without being paid. Okay? Do not ever start a recon job without getting paid. Here's what we would tell you. We would take the entire check. So if it was a $30,000 job and it was going to, let's say $6,000 was going to be on depreciation, right? And there was going to be $1,000 deductible or whatever. What's that going to be? 30 minus 6, so that's going to be 7. It's going to be 23 grand. We would take that entire 23 grand up front right now today. Does that make sense? We didn't do like draw schedules. We took all 23. Why did we do that? Why wouldn't you do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why split it up? You know, I mean, these jobs don't take that long. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just telling you, if the homeowner wants to break that up into multiple checks, that's red flag number one, okay? That is red flag number one. We would take that entire check right up front. They would endorse it right on the back, and we would take that thing, okay? And if I would invite you to do the same thing, okay? I would invite you to do the same thing. A lot of times the homeowner's fear is going to be like, well, what do I do if I'm not happy? There's going to be a big depreciation amount. In this situation, we've got, well, I can't remember what I said in a hypothetical situation for this one, but I think we said maybe $6,000 or something. But there's always going to be a depreciated amount that the homeowner will be able to claw back or not give you until they have signed a certificate of completion, okay? But either way, just make sure that you don't start without that money, because here's one of the real big problems. A lot of guys will start without having a full agreement, or they will start without collecting the money, and then they'll get antsy when the money hadn't shown up 4, 5, 6 weeks later. Here's what's going to happen. If you go do that job and you're 80% done with that job and they got a $23,000 check, they're going to be like, yeah, I don't think this is worth 23 grand. That's what they're going to do, bro. They're going to say, this ain't worth 23 grand. I think this is worth 13 grand. And so I'm going to give you 13, or I'm not going to give you anything. Don't do that, okay? That's one scenario. It's a nightmare. The other scenario would be a nightmare would be this. Let's just say, well, whatever it might be. We can stay with that scenario. You're halfway done through the job at this situation, or 70% done through the job, and they haven't paid you yet, okay? And you're getting a little angry, and you're gonna stop work. You can't stop. Did you know that once you start a project, you can't stop it, okay? Legally, I don't even know if there is a state that if you stop work on a project, okay, and you've got them signed, I would virtually guarantee everybody watching this video, you are breaking your own contract, because your contract is that you are going to do the work. Your contract is not that you're going to start it and stop it. It's that you're going to do all of it. Does that make sense? And so by stopping the work mid-project, or anything short of complete, you are breaking your contract. I know this for a fact because I've had to go to court, try to collect my money, and then there were situations that we put on the brakes because we were mad at the customer or whatever, and that was one of the arguments that was held up to us, and that one kind of sticks, right? If you start the project, you might as well see it through, okay? See it through and hope you get paid. Do not stop. Do not stop. You shouldn't have started, but do not stop because you'll violate your own contract. All right, so that handles scope modifications. Now let's talk about when we're doing reconstruction projects, how do we go about handling our upgrades? And here's going to be the scenario for this. So let's say that you've got a homeowner, and this is very common in the roofing world as well, right? This would work very well for you roofers that are watching this. So let's say you're doing a roofing project and they've got 3-dimensional shingles and you're going to take them up to a 30-year HD shingle, okay? Or in the inside of a recon project, maybe they've got laminate flooring and they've got $6,000 in the budget for that. And they want to do some engineered 3/4 inch stuff, okay? So you've got, and everything else in the scope looks good. Everything else in the scope looks good. What we would do is we would come up with a predetermined cost or a predetermined price. We would identify always, so what is it that you want? You kind of need to know that first, okay? You can't just say, we'll give you a credit towards something else without having it picked out. That's a big mistake because you haven't seen what they picked out. So let's say that you try to do this credit, okay, for the upgrade thing, and they haven't picked the upgrade. What if they pick something that is twice as expensive than what you thought they were going to pick? Well, that doesn't work. That blows your budget. So if you're going to do an upgrade, you've got to find out what it is that they want. You need to know how much that's going to cost. It has to be defined up front, okay? Now, so let's say that they've got level 1 flooring and they want level 2 flooring. All you got to do is draw up a change order and just says, hey, the reconstruction project is going to be this, and we're going to have a side amendment change order that says the homeowner is getting level 1 per the terms of our agreement or the insurance claim, and we are giving them what we would consider to be level 2 flooring. Spell it out, spec it out, and state how much it's going to cost to perform that upgrade. Tell them specifically how much more that is going to cost above and beyond the reconstruction claim, okay? So let's say it's gonna be $8,300. You collect that $8,300 before you ever swing a hammer. You collect that, I say after mitigation, you collect that $8,300 before you do your work, okay? Is that fair? Same thing that I would do on the roofing side, okay? I would let them know, just identify what it is they wanna pick out, and then know what it is, know how much it's going to cost, and write them up a single one-line item change order, whatever, but make sure that you get paid for that upgrade or that change order before you get started. Okay, so let's talk about a big no-no, all right? And this is going to have to do with doing change orders with scope creep, okay? So in this scenario, let's say that a homeowner comes to you and that says, hey, the claim affected our master bedroom and our master bathroom, but we also want to do our guest bathroom while your tile guy is in there. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Don't do it. I'm just telling you. So here's the scenario that we had that was a reason, that was a problem for that. What you are going to find is this. If you do some other work unrelated in another area of the house, I would always do that after you finish the first thing. Why? Because you ever heard the term a nickel holding up a dollar? You ever heard a nickel holding up a dollar? That's what's going to happen. So you're going to have something. You're going to have a $7,000 bathroom remodel going on the other side of the house. So let's say you got a $40,000 check that you're trying to get squared away, and 40 may be much. Let's call it a $15,000 check, okay? Because maybe water affected the kitchen, the master bedroom, and then the master bathroom, right? And you've got a big depreciation check that's coming out of that, or maybe it's draw number 2 and the mortgage company's on it, whatever it might be. You got a $15,000 check coming your way, okay? Problem is, the homeowner is unhappy with 6 foot of shoe mold in the guest bathroom on the other side of the house. I will promise you this, okay? You are not going to get your $15,000 check until you get that 6 foot of shoe mold fixed. And I ain't never seen a freaking $15,000 piece of shoe mold until I did these jobs, okay? I'm just telling you, these are nightmares. I had this happen to me. It wasn't shoe mold in our situation, but it was a house in Murfreesboro. His name was Daryl Hahn. Daryl, my friend, you are a dirtbag. You never paid me, all right? And here's what happened. Not only did we not get paid, okay, we did the work. He never paid us. We filed a lien on his property. He turned around and sued us, okay, and turned us into the Better Business Bureau for just trying to collect what we already said was going to be in the terms of the contract. He wouldn't go for it. This is how I answer the phone, so bear with me. Hey, what's up, babe? Well, we're on YouTube right now. You want to say hey to the viewers? I love you. Bye. So anyway, I love my wife and I love my life. So that's what happens to me as a creator. So where was I? So Daryl Hahn, you never paid me, my friend. You made me go through a whole bunch of work. Here's the deal. You guys are going to wind up being friends in the beginning, but every time when it falls apart, it falls apart. Don't do those things, right? Don't do the bathroom that's unrelated to the scope of work on the other side of the house, because someone that seems like a pretty good dude will turn out to be pretty sketchy in the end. And that's what happened to us. Side note, we never got paid on that thing. Even though we filed the lien, I can't remember what happened. Something happened and it didn't stick or whatever. It was just kind of a nightmare, right? And here's another tidbit of advice. People ask me about liens. I don't file liens, okay? Here's what I wound up doing instead. Go file a lawsuit, okay? A lien is just going to state that you might get paid. I said might. You might get paid if and when they sell their property. They may live for 50 years. You don't get paid for 50 years, okay? Do you want that or do you want to get paid now? I'm telling you, go file a lawsuit. And when they get served and they got to go to court, you are much more likely to get paid in that situation. Do you understand? So, yeah. We did do a couple of liens in the beginning. I found that liens weren't very effective, number one. Lawsuits were very effective. So you should have a good attorney, and you need to have them on retainer, right? And don't mess around with liens. Just go ahead and write a demand letter, file suit. You're going to settle before you get there anyway, okay? And look, most of my nightmare legal battles were my first few years of business when I didn't know what I was doing. I learned a lot more, and I didn't go to court near as much because I could spot someone that probably wasn't going to be a good fit for us. And we didn't do that in the beginning. That's just me being young and dumb. Hopefully that's helpful. Don't do change orders if it's not relating to what you're doing. Like if you're going to do a change order, it needs to be a simple upgrade, something like that. Do not do other projects. Bad idea. All right, so this brings me to another question, or someone said, Shane, what do you do when you come across unexpected damage? So the scenario is, let's say that you've already written your reconstruction, you've already settled it, you've gotten paid for it, and now you suddenly come across some additional damage or something that is greater than what you expected when you came to an agreement on that thing. How do you handle that? Well, that's a really good question. And let me tell you, here's how I handled it. Keep in mind, what you just described there was risk, right? You come to an agreement assuming that this is going to be true, right? Well, that's risk. So the best way to do that is this. Build that risk into the estimate. That's what we would do. We would build the risk into the estimate most of the time. And there might be a situation or a scenario where something could happen. I'd have to really think about it. But I think the bigger thing that I want to drive home to you guys, if you're doing reconstruction, it's not just reconstruction. If you're doing remodeling, if you're doing a construction project, if you are doing any type of project where you're assuming it's going to take 8 or 10 or 12 hours of work, you can be a CPA, you can be a content creator. If you think it's going to take this to get there, you don't know, charge more, double it. That has to account for the risk, okay? This is not specific or limited to reconstruction, like you've got to build that risk into the estimate, into the numbers, into the math, and then it accounts for that stuff. Does that make sense? So the answer, what do? You build that in, you bake that into the estimate. Hopefully that's helpful. Now, here's a little pro tip. Let me give you guys a scenario. So here's a scenario of how we did supplement Reconstruction one time, and I'm trying to think of the scenario of why we did it. I guess we did it because, I don't know, I wanted to make some more money and I was sitting around. So here was the deal. We did, and this isn't like earth-shattering money, okay? But the idea of it maybe will trigger some other ideas for you as you're doing other projects in the future. So the scenario, we did a job, the job is done, it's complete. There was something specific in it like wallpaper. And this was in a big, $2-3 million home in Nashville. And we wallpapered a bathroom, okay? And I think we had $850 or something like that in the estimate for wallpaper, okay? So at the end of the project, I had a bill for like $2,500 because, nothing is cheap in a $3 million home, right? So we had a $2,500 bill, and I was just going through looking, I was like, dude, this was $2,500? And so I just simply said this. I took our estimate where you could see that they had $800 in for that. So I took the recap by category. If you know what that is in Xactimate, and you guys know, I'm not a fan of Xactimate, but I did it for many, many years. I took the recap by category, okay, and I took that $800, and that was what we had in the budget per the adjuster on wallpaper. All I did is I took the estimate, or I took the invoice for what we really had to pay in the end for that, and it being $2,500 or so, and I produced that to the carrier, and we were able to get that other balance. What is that, $1,700 or something like that? Look, here's all I'm saying is if you're upside down on a couple items like that, all is not lost, okay? So you can try to do whatever you want to do, but it's normally only going to happen on maybe pack out, might be some pack out things. But it's usually going to be on something that you're going to be subcontracting. If you guys do pack out with your in-house labor, you're probably not going to be able to do that. But if you guys are doing like moving furniture or pianos or something, and you're outsourcing it, or cleaning like an Asian rug, and you've got $600 in the estimate for it, and it's $1,600, that's a good little pro tip for you guys to be able to pick up that remaining balance. Okay, so let's talk about another scenario in reconstruction. Shane, what do you do when you have budget constraints? Maybe your estimate for this project is going to be $13,300 and the adjuster is at $10,000. What do you do? That's a great question. So here's what you do. You tell the homeowner, you owe me $3,300, you want me to do this job. That's what you do, okay? And so here's what I'll tell you. I mean, that's essentially what you need to know. Your number is your number, your price is your price. If they won't come up to it, then you're not doing that job, okay? You're not doing that job. So here's the best way to get that thing settled or handled. Have your client, specifically normally the wife, show her teeth, right? Like let her grout them. Does she want to use you, yes or no, right? And just tell her this is how much we're going to charge for all of this stuff. And if we're short, then you're going to have to demand to get paid more. And so let's just say hypothetically that my line item, because like if I've got a $13,000 estimate, okay, and we're $3,000 off, all I got to do is find one or two line items in there, one or two trades that I think are light by $3,000, and that would make up for the difference. Does that make sense? So here's what I would tell you. If you've got a $13,000 project, something like that, and let's say that there's some tile flooring, okay, you've got $2,000 in the estimate and the adjuster's got $1,000, then you can go get some other estimates from other guys that you're not going to use, and you provide that to pick up that extra $1,000, or maybe it's pack out. You go get a more expensive moving company to provide the estimate for that, and then you take that money and you apply that towards what you're doing. Now, if you're going, but that's how you use the project as leverage to get your $13,000. Now, here's something you need to be careful of. You got to be able to let your homeowner know, like, I will help you get some more expensive estimates so we can reconcile this stuff, okay? But I'm not doing that so you pocket the difference. I'm doing it so you can come up with enough money so I can put your house back together. Does that make sense? Make sure that you are very forthright and upfront with them, okay? Because again, we talked about it earlier. Some of these people, they lose your phone number if they get enough cash sitting around, right? So, but that's one thing that you can do. You can take some other single line items, like the wallpaper example that I had earlier, pack out, moving, something like that, and you can provide that to the adjuster and maybe justify a higher amount for that specific line item. And then they're going to give that to the homeowner, and the homeowner can put that towards your bill. All right, so here's another question. What about material discrepancies? And this is a really good one. So I'll share this with you guys, okay? Let's make no mistake. My company's called Restoration Profits, so I'm about restoration contractors making profit. Ta-da! But I'm also for my client, the insured, for them to be able to get their stuff put back together by a contractor of their choice, okay, at market rate, pre-loss condition. And if they want to use me and I'm really expensive, then that's what it's going to be. And that's who I was. And that's how I want you to be too. You need to be very expensive, top of market. There's going to be cheap guys and there's going to be expensive guys. You guys should be the expensive ones, okay? So that being said, here, I want to teach you some of the things that we used to do. Have you ever seen, let's say you got a scenario and it's a tub, a 3x5, it's a shower, it's a fiberglass unit, okay? Something happens and let's say that fiberglass unit's up against an exterior wall, because they commonly are, okay? If I've got an exterior wall, so like let's say back there behind me, that's an exterior wall, and we have a 3x5 tub, and water went underneath the tub. It obviously went underneath the tub. What do? Well, I would tell you this. You can't really dry underneath that tub because you've got an exterior wall back there and there's insulation back there. So what do? I'm gonna tell you what we do. We would rip that sucker out. That whole fiberglass unit comes out. You don't know what's back there. You got to spray and clean. Like, you can't leave that water back there. And if you can't test, in my opinion, how high that water went up, where the drywall is, then you got to pull that sucker out to be able to verify. So this is a scenario where you're going to be pulling out a 3x5 shower or a fiberglass shower. We would pull that thing out, but when I'm selling that job to the homeowner, I am selling them the vision of a remodeled bathroom. And it's not going to be an ugly 3x5 fiberglass unit. No, baby. We're putting back a freaking nice steel porcelain tub, okay? And I'm giving them like a tile surround, okay? I'm giving them like a level 9 bathroom. That's what I want them to think about. Now, why am I doing that? Because you can't get a 3x5 unit up the stairs and through those things. Do you guys know how 3x5 units go in, or when they go in? Those things go in before they ever frame up the walls. They will leave studs out just to put that thing in there. If you don't believe me, go walk around a new construction neighborhood, okay? And before they put they'll pull some extra studs out to get those tubs and showers in there, okay? You might be, and by the way, when they come out, yeah, it comes out in little pieces, okay? You got to chop that sucker up, like, you know, freaking sawzall that sucker, and it's coming out in a bag. And when we're going to put it back, we're going to be putting it back with tile. And why? Because you get the tile up there. Now listen, the adjuster might say, well, you could probably use a 3x5 knockdown piece, but like that's not helping my client. My client had a solid unit to begin with, and they're going to get a solid unit or something better. So what I would do is I would press the adjuster. No. Okay, so if you want to get them a 3x5, let's do this. Let's tear these walls out and let's get that 3x5 in there. Does that make sense? And the homeowner is not going to want that, all right? My wife would never go for that. I'm telling you, happy wife, happy life. You let her stay. Listen, here's the deal. I either want my 3x5 shower in there, let them tear out the walls, or let them put in the tile shower. It's up to you. And that's what I would say, because it is cheaper to upgrade to the tile than it is to tear out the walls and get that sucker in there. We clear? All right, guys, so that's going to put a wrap on this video. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Listen, if you want me to help you grow your restoration company, you know the deal. Go to workwithshane.com. Do me a favor. Share this video on social media and tag me. It would mean a whole lot to me. We'll see you guys in the next video. If you guys enjoyed that video, I've got 3 things for you. First off, there's a couple of other videos somewhere on the screen. You can click those now to go watch more content about growing your restoration company. Number 2, if you haven't already subscribed, click my face below and that will subscribe you to the channel. And finally, if you would like for me to help you grow your restoration company, go to workwithshane.com, put in your information, and let's get on a 15-minute call. We'll see you then.